Hi everybody, I'm back with a book review. So today I'm going to be reviewing, well, not really reviewing, just kind of giving you sort of my take on a book called How to Wake Up, a Buddhist-Inspired Guide to Navigating Joy and Sorrow by Toni Bernhard. This is what the book looks like. And I've reviewed two of her other books on my channel, How to Live Well and How to Be Sick. She is a chronically ill writer, and I believe she also has a blog on chronic illness. And she wrote this book as a response to people that were asking her to sort of write something about Buddhism, but for everybody else, not necessarily people who are chronically ill, because her other two books are very specific to chronically ill people. So, this book, my review or my take on it is going to be a bit skewed because I have read her other two books, and I think that really influenced how I felt about this book. So keep that in mind as I'm going over these points. And I'll let you know why. And I did not buy this book, so I don't have a copy of it on hand, and there's a reason why I didn't buy it. I do own her other two books. So just take everything with a grain of salt. I know that this channel is mostly geared towards chronically ill people, so I'm speaking to that audience. But if you're not chronically ill and you're just interested in this book and her way of describing Buddhism, then this book might be something that you want to check out. So the good thing is that it's written the same as her other books. It is very accessible. The language is very easy to use. She does use some Buddhist terminology, but she explains it, in plain English. So it's a very accessible book. You're not going to have a hard time understanding it or understanding the practices. She makes the practices, she describes them in a way that's, very simple, and you understand it and you can implement it right away. So, she's not very woo-woo. I think a lot of people have this image of Buddhism that's very, it's very mystical and ethereal and out there, and it really isn't. She doesn't really describe it in that way. The way that she makes it seem is just very accessible, something that anybody could put into practice. And that's what I like most about her books. All of her books are like that. They're very simple to understand and to actually just start practicing right away. Another good thing is that it's written for the beginner Buddhist, for anyone, not just chronically ill people. And like I said, it's a beginner book. Someone that is just newly interested in Buddhism might want to check this out. It is not an advanced or, getting into the advanced practices or the mysticism or all of that. It is just very intro to Buddhism for anybody, not specific to sick people or to any specific population. So if you're, new to Buddhism and you just want something that's going to explain to you the basics and some basic practices, this is definitely for you. The other good thing is that it's short. It's not a very thick book. I think it was like that thick. Of the three books that she's written, I believe this one might be the shortest one. So it's a quick read. It's not going to take too much of your time, and it's going to be easy to get through, and you're not going to be confused or lost or anything like that. Now for me, because I have her other two books and I've already read her other two books, I found this book to fall short of being, captivating or interesting like her other two books. And like I said, this may be because I already had seen these practices in her other books and had already, I've actually already practiced those practices. And like I said, I read two of her books. So by this last one, I had, read about, certain practices and read about them again and then read about them a third time. So it's sort of was a little bit repetitive for me, and I kind of was like, I've heard this before. So if you are a chronically ill person, I would probably recommend sticking to her other two books, and just kind of skipping this one because it's, it's just going to tell you a lot of the same stuff. It's shorter, so it's going to have less information than the other ones, and it's not specific to you. It didn't draw me in because of this. So that was a hard part for me. Even though this book is short, it did not draw me in. So that was the hard part. You know, I did find it tedious to get through the book, even though it's not that long. And I kind of felt bad about that because I really enjoyed her other two books. I was totally drawn in. I've read them once, I've read them twice, and I've liked them the same each time. And this book just didn't do it for me. So I think those are the major drawbacks for me. They might just be specific to me. Like I said, if you've never read about Buddhism before, if you're not a chronically ill person, this could definitely be the book for you. Now there's one last thing I want to mention, and the reason I'm bringing this up, and this could be, you know, I can't say if this is a pro, I can't say if this is a con. For some people, it may be something that they really want to look into. For other people, specifically chronically ill people, it may be something that you want to avoid. It really just depends on where you are in your illness. Also, if you are a terminally ill person or someone who is very, very sick and uncertain of the future, like I said, this can be good, this can be bad. So there is something in this book that is not in her other two books. So this is the only thing that is not in her other two books at all. And it's called Death Awareness Practice. And basically it is a Buddhist practice that is geared towards sort of, I want to say, making you comfortable with death and with your, you know, with the future, because everybody is eventually going to die. And she does give a disclaimer at the beginning of the chapter that if you are very depressed or if you're just in a really bad place in your life, to sort of maybe skip over it, because it can get a little bit tough for some people to get through. Now, I, on the other hand, really enjoyed this part of the book because it wasn't in her other two books. So this was the one section of the book that really drew me in, because I had not read about this. I didn't know about death awareness practices. She did not detail these or even really touch on these at all in her other two books. And I think the reason for that is because her other two books are specific to sick people, chronically ill people, not necessarily terminally ill, just people that are sick all the time, but there's really no end in sight. So I think the reason she left that out of the other two books is because it might be a little too difficult for chronically ill people to really see that, you know, especially the way that they're feeling every day. So I understand that. But for me, I really like this. I think it could be very helpful for terminally ill people. To be totally honest, that's kind of how I feel, but everyone is different. So that's probably the biggest thing to note before you read this book, whether you're sick or not. There are some people that are more comfortable with this than others, but, you know, I can definitely see how this could be kind of a deal breaker for a lot of people. So there is the death awareness practices. And like I said, if you're not into that, I would definitely probably just avoid this book, because it's not morbid. She doesn't describe it in a morbid way. It's not, you know, she describes it in a very, it sounds weird, but she describes it in a very nice way. It doesn't come across as morbid or, you know, nihilistic or anything like that. So don't be scared. It's not going to be something that's going to, you know, that's going to be scary, because she doesn't describe it in a scary way, but it is just dependent on where you are at in your life. Overall, I would still recommend this book, particularly if you are not a chronically ill person and you want to know about Buddhism and you want a book that is a good intro to Buddhism. So I'm not telling people not to read this. I just found it tedious because I've already read her other two books, and her other two books cater to me since I have a chronic illness. So this one I didn't feel really catered to me as much. But I would definitely go out and get this book. I love her and her writing. It's amazing. Like I said, this is what the book looks like. It's a blue book with a yellow flower on the front. Definitely go out and get this book and put some of the practices into your life. And yeah, let me know what you think in the comments. And don't forget to subscribe. And I will be back again soon with another review.